Hello, welcome to this video of Miss Moore's Flip. Today's video will be about gridded response. People try to make gridded response to be this terrible, horrible thing, but if you know what you're doing, you're going to be okay. And if you listen to this video, you watch this video, I promise you're going to be okay. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to break down the pieces of this gridded response. Okay, so if you look at the gridded response grid, the first thing you see are these blank bubbles. That's where you're to write your answer after you work it out and after you figure out your answer. Now, the next thing you'll see a negative sign, and then you'll see 1, 2, 3, you'll see 4 slashes. Now, what are those slashes? First of all, there are two different things. Number one, it's your fraction bar. But if it's a fraction, it's also a division sign. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And then right below that are all of your decimals. Then below all of that are your numbers 0 through 9. So you can take it as a suggestion, but you already know it's not really a suggestion. You all are going to start all the way to the left. Now, you can start in the second block. You can start at the last block, but I'm telling you, it is going to be the easiest if you start in this first block. So wherever your first number lands, whatever your first number is, needs to go in block number 1. Okay, so let's just try an example. So for example purposes, say your problem asked for what is the product of 6 and 2. Okay, so first of all, you know that the word product is telling you to multiply, and your numbers are 6 and 2. So the product of 6 and 2, we all know, is 12. So gridded response. That first block, you're going to put a 1. That second block, you're going to put a 2. Now, as you can see with this particular example, we don't have any negatives. It's not a fraction. We don't have any decimals. So now we're good to be able to bubble this in. So under this 1 in this first block, I'm going to go all the way down to this 1, and I'm going to shade it in. I'm going to make sure that I shade it in all the way, not just half of it, not the messy bubbles. Okay, as you can see, I've done it for the 1, and I've also done it for the 2. And then this is it for this particular answer. I'm done. Easy, right? Okay, so example number 2. We're going to be doing 2 1/3 divided by 1/2. And we all know that if I have a mixed number, that I have to change it into an improper fraction to be able to do anything with it concerning division. So that's what we're going to do. If I change 2 1/3 to an improper fraction, it's going to give me 7/3. Why? Because I did 2 times 3 plus 1 is going to give me 7, and then my denominator obviously stays the same, which is 3. So now I'm left with 7/3 divided by 1/2. And so now I can do my 3 steps that requires me to be able to divide fractions. I keep, I change, and then I flip. Remember that my flip fraction is called my reciprocal. So now I have 7/3 times 2/1. And when I multiply that across, because I go numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator, it gives me 14/3. Now, you already know I'd love for you to go ahead and change that improper fraction to a mixed number. But when I'm dealing with gridded response, keep it as a improper fraction. Okay? You are unable to put mixed numbers into the gridded response. Okay? You cannot put a mixed number into the gridded response. It must be a improper fraction, or you can change it into a decimal. So I'm going to show you this 2 ways. We've already solved our division problem, and the answer to that division problem, which, I never give you the answer, but I'm going to give it to you today. The answer to your division problem is 14/3. So you can either put 14/3 into your gridded response, or you can do 4 and 66/100. Okay, worked it out for you and everything. So I'm going to do both in a gridded response. The first one we're going to start with, and I hope you can see it, I have put 14/3 into my gridded response. As you can see, everything has its own box. My 1 is in its own box, my 4 is in its own box, my fraction bar is in its own box, my 3 is in its own box. Never put more than one number in one box. Okay? Every number, every symbol has its own box. Okay? So once I have it written across the top, I'm going to go down the bottom and shade all of these in. Make sure that your bubbles are nice and dark. Make sure that your bubbles are right under that. So if I have a 1 here, don't go down and bubble in a number 4. That doesn't make sense, okay? Make sure that your bubbles are in line with whatever number is at the top. Okay, so I've bubbled in everything for 14/3. And as you can see, under my 1, I came down and shaded my 1. Under my 4, I came down and shaded my 4. Under my division symbol, I shaded in my division symbol. And under the 3, I shaded in my 3. Now, as you can see, I have nothing in my last 2 boxes up here. But I did not bubble in anything. Do not bubble in anything else other than what's there for the answer. So, for the second one, I have 4 and 6600ths. And I've also went ahead and bubbled this in too. So I have my 4 in its own box, the decimal in its own box, and the 6 in its own box, the last 6 in its own box as well, okay? And then you go back and you bubble in everything that's under it. So the 4, I bubbled in the 4. Under the decimal, I shaded in the decimal. Under the 6, I shaded in the 6. And under the other 6, I shaded in the other 6. Now, in the last 2 boxes, I have nothing there. So I don't shade in anything, okay? Okay, so your next example. So say your answer ends up being $13.45. If you look at your graded response, do you have a dollar sign? No. So that's not something that you can worry about. That's not something that you include in your answer when it comes to this graded response. So again, my answer is $13.45. I'm going to start with my 1 in my first box, my 3 in my next box, my decimal, and my 4 in its own box, my 5 in its own box, and I'll bubble it in the same way. Dollar signs, you do not include in graded response. Listen well, no dollar signs. Okay, so when I bubble this in, again, my 1 is in its own box, my 3 is in its own box, my decimal's in its own box, my 4 and my 5 are also in their own boxes. As you can see, I don't include my dollar sign. I don't even leave space for my dollar sign because there's nowhere for me to bubble it into my graded response. So don't do it. Okay. Also, in the last box on this side, I don't have anything in that box. I don't have anything bubbled for it. Okay. That's it. Last example, I have 2,563. As you can see, I have this comma in there. And normally we do put that comma in between my thousands place and my hundreds place. But for this particular example, when you're doing graded response, it does not go into your boxes, okay? There's nowhere for you to put a comma, so you leave it out. And you don't leave a space for it. So as you can see, my comma would go in between my 2 and my 5. I don't even leave a space for the comma. I ignore it. It's gone. Leave it alone. Okay? But the only things that you cannot ignore, please remember, are going to be your fraction bars and your decimals. Okay? Don't ignore those two. Your dollar signs and your commas, irrelevant. Don't put them in there. Don't leave space for them. Leave them alone. And I think that's it for our graded response. Please feel free to rewind this video and watch it as many times as you need. So before I let you go, I thought I was done, but I lied. So before I let you go, I just want to give a rundown of all the things that you need to keep in mind and things that you need to just block out, okay? So mixed numbers must be made and proper. Do not put mixed numbers into your graded response, okay? You want to make sure that you start all the way to the left. That is the first bubble that you start in, always. Your slash is the same thing as your fraction bar. The decimal, you already know what the decimal is. Everything has its own box. So every number, every symbol has its own box. Do not try to fit a decimal in the box with a number. Don't do it. And your commas and your dollar signs, there are no place for them. There's nowhere to bubble them in, so leave them out of it. Okay, I think you should be good now.